Okay, so this one, first of all, I'm going to demonstrate the part that is drawn in the first part of the chapter. It's called a locator, and when I talk about the thinking process, because you can use this to work through the labs. So here at the bottom is what the part looks like, and what it's showing you here is the thought process of going through this and saying, well, the bottom looked like a rectangle before it was, before a radius was cut, and then a slot was cut in here, and then a cylinder was added to it. So that's why it's saying a rectangle, a cylinder, then those are joined, and then we make a cut, and then we make another cut for that, and then we take this hole and we force it out by using a triangle and doing a cut, and that's what we come up with. So this one is metric. So I'm going to click new, and then I'm going to use, instead of English, you'll probably come up to English if you were doing a metric drawing. None of the labs for this section are metric, but I'm going to use standard IPT and create. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start a sketch. This time I'm going to start it on the top plane, YZ. I'm going to use under the rectangle. I like to use the 2-point center, and that way I can go ahead and reference my origin. Now I can put my dimensions in now, or I can put them in later. So I've got the blue dimension is the one that I'm revising at this time. So that particular dimension is 50. And then well, it went out of that command. I should have probably used the tab key. This dimension is 75, and so that completes the object. And then we're going to go right click, finish sketch. We're going to do an extrusion, and the extrusion is going to be 15 millimeters. Typically you get a choice here about join, cut, or intersect. But there's only really one thing we can do with this profile, so, and that's join, but we do have choices about which way we want to go, and I'm just going to work from the bottom up and click OK. And then I want to draw, I need a half circle out here. So I'm going to start a sketch, and I'm going to do this one on the bottom side. So I'm going to click that corner of the view cube and click that bottom surface, and then I'm going to do a circle, and I want it to snap to the center of that line, and then I want it to snap to that edge. Now if you have any question in your mind about whether or not it's the right dimension, you can always check it. And so it says it's over constrain. But we can create a driven dimension. So that just confirms that that has a 50 millimeter radius, which is the same as the original object. So I finish sketch, and then I want to do an extrude, and then either choose that circle or it chooses it for me. I want to go the other direction. You see it's thinking that I want to cut that. We've got a choice of join, or cut, or intersect. Intersect just gives me what they have in common. I can't say I've ever used a command. So I'm going to use join, and then it wants to know how much, and then I just look at the overall dimension for that, so I can extrude that, and I extrude that 40 millimeters. And then click OK. And then I'm going to click back on the house over here, and there is my object. So now I'm getting close to what the part looks like. So I'm going to use the hole command on the sketch tab. I'm going to start a sketch on the surface of this cylinder, and then I'm going to place a hole, and I want to snap to the center of that circle. So when I get close to the center, I should see the green snap, and then I'm going to draw that, and then I want to dimension this 30 millimeters. If you have any question about whether or not you snap to the center, you can always use your concentric constraint to make these two circles share the same center. I want to finish sketch, and this time I'm going to do an extrude. I'm going to left click on the 3D model tab, click extrude. It selects the profile for me, but it assumes I want to join it. So I'm going to use a cut, and you can see So this extrusion is a cut. Instead of using the 40 millimeters, which is, you know, the length of the cylinder, and it's fine, except that if I ever change the cylinder, say I make the cylinder taller, I make it 50 or 60 millimeters, and the hole is still supposed to go the full distance of the cylinder no matter what the dimension, then the hole is not going to go all the way through. So instead of distance, I'm going to use this drop down in extents and say through all. So this way, even though it looks the same, it will go through the cylinder no matter how long it is. So I click on OK. And it's just something that we can use to kind of make our object so that it's easy to edit and it has constraints. So this time I'm going to use the whole command that is located on the 3D model tab. Commands which you can use here. A lot of these are something that you could do in Sketch first and then do the feature. But one of the handy things about hole and fillet and chamfer and some of the others is you can use those without a sketch. So they are called placed features. I'm sorry. So I click on hole. I click on the surface that I want to put it. And right now, it doesn't matter about the location because my dimensions are going to force that to be in the correct location. So I'm going to, if it hasn't selected it for me, I'm going to select a simple hole. You see there's a blue square around it. I can pick, you know, if I want any kind of counterbore, but I don't. I just want a plain old hole. And then I'm going to use the distance. You see it's got, let's see, distance. I'm going to put in distance. I want to put in my length. My length is going to be through all. So you can see some of these options are going away as I choose others. And so here, my dimension, I'm going to left click on that. And it allows me to change it to that. It needs to be 20 millimeters. So I'll put 20 in there. And you noticed before it had given me dimension. So now I don't have that, but I can select a side that I want the dimension from, and you see that comes back up. So that dimension from the end is, I believe it's 30. Can't read the drawing that well, but, and then I clicked on the side, and that one is 25. So you can see that places the hole in the correct place. So if I click OK, then not only do I have my hole, but I also have the dimensions for it too. So if I wanted to change those dimensions, I would have to go into the feature, and you can see if I left click on the arrow, it actually has created a sketch for me, but I didn't have to select that sketch. So looking at this, if I want to use, if I want to orbit around, maybe I want to see, just be sure that hole goes all the way through. And if I click on the bottom, you know, it might not be the view I want. So I can either use orbit over here, but I also like to just choose to orbit it myself without having to go into the orbit command. And all I have to do is hold down shift and then hold down the middle wheel of my mouse. And then I can look and check in any area and see those two holes. Okay, now I want to make sure I want this hole to go all the way through. So I'm going to click on, I'm going to create a cutout that'll go all the way to the hole. So I'm going to use that shift key and kind of orbit around so I can see this edge. So I'm going to draw a sketch on this surface. And then I'm going to do a rectangle, and I'm going to try to pick up, if you watch it, it will snap to here, but if you're not sure you're snapping to it, I'm just going to draw, well, I'm still on center point rectangle. Let me change that to, I'm going to use 2 point. So I'm going to click away from the edge, and then I'm going to dimension it, maybe just to be sure that it does touch that. So I'm going to show a location here. Okay, so I want this one to be touching the line from the other sketch. So I'm going to put a 0 there. I'm going to dimension this one, and I'm going to put a 0 there. And that way I'm sure that it's touching that object. And then my other dimensions are, let's see, 15 millimeters from here. Make that 15. And then that slot from here to here, well, right now it's a rectangle, is 20. So now right click, finish sketch, do an extrude, click on that. I want to do a cut. And for this one, I'm going to use, I've got the cut option, and I'm going to select to next for my distance. And that way it goes to the hole, to the next cutout that it sees, or the next feature, or the next configuration. So this time, if I move my hole, the cutout slot will go with it. Click OK. And then here is my object. And of course, I'm ready to save that. Couple things that I wanted to show you before I get into one of the labs. If you like a grid, personally, I don't like the grid, but some people do, then you can open that if you want to. So if you want to use a grid, you can go to Tools and go to Application Options and go to Sketch. And if you look in here, we're looking for grid lines. Notice that there's also snap to grid if you want to snap. So you can show the grid lines without snapping to them if you want to. So I'm going to click on grid lines and click on apply. And you do not see the grid lines right now, but there's a reason, because you do not see the grid lines in the feature mode. And this is another reason that people like the grid lines. I'm going to right click on that extrusion and do edit sketch, so you can see now I see the grid lines. So if you like for your screen to look different here, that's one option that you can use to show the grid lines. And this way, when you see grid lines, you're in sketch. When you don't see them, you're not in sketch, so you're in feature. If you want to control the snap and the number of grids, you can, I'm going to go to the sketch, edit sketch. And then again, I'm going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Application Options, and I'm sorry, I'm going to go to Document Settings this time. Document Settings and Sketch. And you see here you can change your snap spacing. So right now that's 1 millimeter. So that's probably kind of small for millimeters. You might want to make that 5. And then you can also change the other direction. So you can see my grid lines are changing. And you can also, change the number of lines that are shown for major and minor dimensions. Let's just say that we change that to 3. I can't see that changes a lot of information, but maybe it's because I'm in millimeters. So anyway, I'm going to click OK. Or I can click on apply, and then I can see that has changed my screen. Click on close, and now I can see the major and the minor lines in that. So if you like that, you can use that, and you can always snap to the grid lines if you want to. The only thing I don't like about that is that you're not, sometimes I don't want it to snap to a grid line. To change the appearance of a model, you can use, let me go back to 3D model. I'm sorry. Let's see, go to view. Okay, so I'm going to go to the house. I'm also going to get out of sketch mode here, get rid of the grid lines. And I'm going to go to view, because right now I see the object, but as a solid. Sometimes you might want to change that. So I'm going to go to Visual Style under the View tab. And you can see I have some different ways that I can look at that. Usually I just use shaded, or I use wireframe. So if for some reason you want to see what's inside the part, then you can change that to wireframe. And I'm going to go back to shaded. And some of the others, this may look more realistic, but sometimes that takes a little more graphics to show it as you're drawing it. So just show what helps you. They're shaded with the edges. So maybe that helps you. Next, I want to do one of the labs. The first 2 or 3 are pretty easy. Labs 3-1, 3-2 are pretty easy. And then 3-4 and 3-6 get a little more complicated. So I want to walk you through 3-6 and introduces a command that where you can draw a slot. So if we kind of break that down into what that part looks like, and I was going to see if, yeah, I've got a, let me look at it back of this chapter. Okay, so here it is. So if we look at this part, we're like, gosh, you know, you got these, you got this ring, kind of a donut slot shape that's cut here, and then you got this one, and they're both in two different planes. So you can't possibly draw this half round with a hole in it in the same plane that you draw this backwards C shape. So the way I'm looking at it right now is I'm looking at a slot. So I've got an inner slot, and then I've got the outer slot, and then I've got to cut out through that. And then if I draw this half round surface part on this surface, then I can join those together. So looking at that, I'm going to get out of this one, and I'm going to start a new sketch, and I want to be in English, and I want to use standard IPT. And I want to sketch, and I'm going to sketch on this bottom surface. Under the rectangle command is or are some slot options. I like to use the center for that one, just like I did the rectangle, because I can put that slot in the center. And if I just hesitate here a while, it tells you how to draw the slot and how the slot is drawn according to the dimensions that you're given. So it works with the slot width, and it also works with the distance. So I'm going to click on that, and then I line it up with the origin, and it goes in the right hand direction 2.5, and that's center to center. And then outward, oh, there you go. Then outward it goes a diameter of 1. So that's my slot. Now I also want a thickness for that in this view. Okay, so for this one, I could extrude that shape and then use another shape, but often you can incorporate a couple of items in one sketch. So just like you could draw an object and draw a hole in it, this just extrude a donut. I'm going to do something similar with the slot. So I'm going to repeat the slot. If you'll notice, it's in blue, so I'm still in the slot command. So I'm going to left click on the origin. You see that turns green, and then this one turns green too. And for this outer shell, it has a 2-inch diameter. So I'm going to click on that, so you can see now I've got kind of an elliptical shaped donut. So right click, finish sketch. And so now I'm going to use extrude. And now I get the option of choosing. I mean, I can extrude the inner circle, but what I want to do is I want to extrude this outer circle. So you can see if I click on that, I'm getting this particular shape. If I didn't like that selection, I could click back on profile, and well, let me cancel out of it. Evidently it doesn't want to do that. If I clicked on this, and if I clicked here, then you can see that is the shape that I would get, but I do not want to do that. So I'm going to click on extrude again, and this time I'm going to choose, and you see there are only a subtle difference in the gray color. Click on that, and then it is extruded 0.5. Can't read that very well, but that's extruded 0.5, and I went ahead and hit enter, and it took me out of that. So you can see I pretty much have that basic shape, but this is cut out here. So I'm going to start a sketch. I'm going to start it on this surface, and then you notice my grid lines are on from before, so if you like that, you can use those. And this one is a rectangle shape, and again, I'm going to choose the 2-point, and this time I'm going to try to snap to that and try to see if that's I don't know. It doesn't look like to me it's trying to snap to that. So I'm going to just be sure by doing this and tying it in. Sometimes it snaps real easy to the other object, and sometimes it's kind of iffy. So I'd really rather that it was definitely snapping to that. And it looks like I've got 250 divided minus 1 1/4 and then divided by 2. Where the distance from center to center was 250, and this distance is 1 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and dimension this as 1.25, and then I'm going to move this just a little bit, shift and orbit it down just a little bit to see if I can snap to dimension that from the center of this hole, or I might have to go to the edge. So I've got dimension, and I'm going to see, yeah, it doesn't, well, there you go. Maybe because that is, I don't know, there's a line there too, so it is giving me that information. So I already have that information, but I just wanted to see if I could snap to those two edges. So I'm going to use dimension, and I'm going to click from this edge to this edge. And I'm going to show you something. It's not really included in this chapter, but it really makes it easier for not having to do the math. So I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to hit subtract and click here, divided by 2. Now, I'm not sure if I have to put in parentheses in there. I'm just going to try that one. And yeah, it didn't work. So let's see if it will allow me to put a parentheses in here. Whoops, didn't want to. Just wanted 1 because I wanted it to take that. Whoops, nope, it doesn't like that. So I'm not going to be able to use that. So I'm going to have to go ahead and do that on my own. And when I say on my own, I mean on my own using the calculator. So I got 2.5, whoop, 5 minus 1 1/4 equals that. Then divide that by 2 and hit your equal. And so I've got that information, 0.625. So that's what I'm going to use here. So that gives me 625 here, and then here should be the same thing. Just going to check it. Yep, driven. So that way I'm sure that's right. Right click, finish sketch, and then I'm going to use extrude, pick that. I can switch to the house if I want to see that a little better, and I want it to be a cut. And this time I'm going to use, instead of distance, I'm going to use to next. And then I'm going to click on this surface to let it know. Terminator. Left click on that so it'll turn blue. And then click on that surface and click OK. So you can see that did a cutout, and the only thing we're missing is the part that this little shape here, like a little tab, that's drawn on the inside surface of here, or it can be drawn on the outside and extruded. So I'm going to do a sketch, and I'm going to pick this inner surface there, and then I'm going to start with a rectangle, and I want the rectangle, let's see, I'm on corner to corner, so I'm going to just do this again, and then I'm going to dimension, and from this edge to the center, let's see, this is in the center. There's not a dimension there, but usually when it's not, it's understood to be in the center. So from here to snap and get my origin, or that line, either one. And that particular dimension is from that edge, I better get the calculator again, is going to be 2.5 minus, this one is 0.625 radius. So instead of using, no, that's right, I'm going to use 2.5 divided by 2, so that would be half of it, and then minus 0.625. And so that gives me 0.625. So minimize that. And that dimension should be 0.625. And the same thing with the other side. If it would allow me to, again, shift and move this up, is it going to allow me? Okay, it will allow me to dimension from here to here. And I'm going to make that one equal to this one. I must have put put an extra line in there. I didn't mean to do that. Click OK. So if I change this one, then that one will go with it. So I'm going to click here just to see what that is, except because it is 1 1/4. So I'm just checking myself. If I change this dimension just to show you, then both of these change, and so does that. But I don't want to do that. I want to go with the dimensions of the part. So I'm going to undo. There you go. And then, yeah, I want to dimension this so it touches there. Whoops. It went all the way to the top. Well, since that is a 1/2 inch tall, if I do that, nope, that didn't work. Okay, I don't know what it was snapping to then. Dimension from this edge to here. Why is it picking? There you go. Optical illusion. So here and here. Okay, so now I got that. I'm gonna go back to the house. You know what? I really wanted that to be taller. Let's see if it will allow me to put a dimension in here. No, because I got that edge. Okay, well, this one, let me go back to here. And I'm going to get rid of this dimension because I really want from here to here. And I want that to be the dimension of my part to the center, which is 1. That makes it taller. And then I'm going to draw a circle, snap it to the center, draw it to this edge. It is the radius of that circle is equal to the width of that rectangle. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle in here. And that circle is 0.5 diameter. So I've already got that shape. I'm going to use trim to take away this bottom portion. And then I'm going to also get rid of this line. It wouldn't let me trim it like that, so I'm going to delete it and delete this part. It looks like that maybe it's saying 3 dimensions are needed. I'm going to click over here at the automatic dimensions and apply. Okay, so it wanted to add a tangent here and here, and it wanted to add to 0.5. It likes that, so I'm going to click on apply and done. Right click finish sketch, and then I've got that shape, and then I can do extrude, and I can pick that shape, and I want to go the other way, and I want to do a join, and I'm finished. The only other thing that I wanted to take care of looks like tools, document settings, and units. And you can see here for precision. Now, if we were using millimeters, we might not want to go to the 3rd decimal place, but you do have that option to change it. Click on close. And then if ever you want to check a dimension of something without going back to the sketch, you can pick inspect and measure. And then let's just pick one of these lines and see that tells me it's 0.5. So I can go around here and then, whoops, that is a crazy dimension. So maybe that's not what I wanted, but you can see that it's, I can find particular dimensions. I'm going to click on measure, then I'm going to click on the hole so I can see that's a 0.5 inch diameter. So that's just a way to do that. So I'm through with that part and at the end of the video.